The wine hit her clavicle first, then her gown, then her hip. The Bordeaux ran down a ruby-red silk dress she had picked out 3 weeks earlier for the most important night of her career, and the man who poured it on her was laughing. Zara Devereaux did not move. She kept her chin lifted. She kept her hands at her sides. She kept her eyes on him. Then he hit her. The slap snapped the gold key chain at her throat. The chain hit the marble. The room saw it. Zara did not cry. She crouched in the soaked silk, picked the chain off the floor with both hands, and walked out of the atrium without saying a single word to Nathaniel Beaumont, the drunk heir of the Beaumont conglomerate, the man who had been told no for the first time in his life and had decided no would not stick. Nathaniel did not know one thing. Zara was engaged, quietly, 2 years in, to a soft-spoken Korean import businessman named Seo Junho, the man who kissed her bruised cheek that night in the dark and told her he would handle it in the morning. The man whose tattoo she had not yet looked at carefully. The man whose name, in another language, was not Seo Junho at all. Across the city at that exact moment that man was already standing. He had watched the slap on a security feed of a gallery he secretly owned, and what he was about to do to Nathaniel Beaumont, without a single drop of blood she would ever have to know about, would unmake an entire American dynasty in 9 days. Before starting the story, comment down below where you are watching from and what time it is there. If stories of karma, love, and hidden truths move you, leave a like, be sure to subscribe to the channel, and click join to become a member and help our channel. Zara Devereaux counted the wine glasses for the 3rd time and still came up 1 short. She set the clipboard on the marble bar of Maison Vert and breathed through her nose. 48 guests at Saturday's gala, 12 tables of 4, 2 glasses per setting, plus the backup rack. She knew the math. The math was not the problem. The problem was the staff list pinned to the corkboard behind her, where the name Calloway, Junior Server, Tuesday shift had a thin pencil line drawn through it. Calloway was the one Nathaniel Beaumont had grabbed last month. Zara had filed the complaint herself. She had walked the girl down to the office, sat her in the chair the staff called the crying chair, and written the incident report by hand, because she didn't trust the digital one to stay on the system. The report was on Eleanor Beaumont's desk. Eleanor Beaumont had emailed back 2 sentences. "Thank you for your discretion. Please assure us Saturday's evening proceeds as planned." Zara picked up the clipboard again. 47 glasses. 1 short. She walked to the storage closet without bothering to call the bar back. The back hallway of Maison Vert smelled the way it always smelled. Cedar, old wine. The lavender oil Marisol kept in a diffuser by the cellar door. Zara turned the brass key in the storage closet and pulled the missing crystal off the 3rd shelf. She held it up to the hallway light. Clean. She put it under her arm. When she stepped out, her bartender, Theo, was standing in the hallway with both hands in his apron pockets. "He's coming Saturday," Theo said. "I know." He asked Marisol if you were the black girl in the red dress from the Christmas event. Zara walked past him to the bar. "I'm putting Devin on his table," Theo said behind her. "You're putting Devin on his table." It was not a question. "He's 6'4". He's been to Iraq." Zara set the crystal in the rack. "Put Devin on his table," she turned, "and tell Devin if Beaumont reaches for him, Devin walks away. We don't give them a clip for their lawyers." Theo nodded. He didn't move. "What? You should have somebody walk you to the train tonight." "I have somebody." She did. She had Junho. He had been waiting on the bench across from the staff's exit for the last 6 months. On the nights she closed late, and he had a way of standing up when he saw her that made her feel for the first time in her adult life like she'd been chosen, not selected. She liked the difference between those 2 words. She thought about it sometimes when she couldn't sleep. Theo studied her for half a beat and turned away. Zara took the clipboard back to the office, finished the seating chart, and at 9:40 she shut off the lights, 1 room at a time the way her grandmother used to shut off the lights at the diner. The back first, then the kitchen, then the front. So the dark followed you toward the door instead of catching you from behind. Outside on Madison, the air smelled like rain that hadn't started. Junho was already on the bench. He stood up. She didn't say anything. He didn't either. He took her tote off her shoulder and switched it to his side. They walked 4 blocks before she let her head rest against his upper arm, and another block before he kissed the top of her hair. "You're quiet," he said. "Long day, the gala, Saturday." He nodded. He always knew which Saturday. He paid attention to her calendar the way some men paid attention to a market open. They reached the corner of Park and 81st. He bought her a coffee from the night cart and let her hold it without making her pretend to drink it. They walked the rest of the way to the brownstone without speaking. Inside her apartment, he set the takeaway bag on the kitchen counter and pulled a small velvet box out of his coat pocket. He set it next to the bag and put both hands on the counter on either side of it, like he was steadying a glass. "You said next month," she said. "I lied." She laughed once before her throat closed up. "Open it after dinner," he said. "Or open it now, or don't open it. It's yours. I only get to give it to you the first time." She left the box on the counter and put both her hands on his face and kissed him with the wine on her clipboard, still hanging in her mind, and the closet key still in her pocket, and the slap she did not yet know was coming 3 nights away. The box stayed closed all night. She would open it on Sunday morning. She didn't get to. By Sunday morning, her life was a different shape. Saturday arrived the way Saturdays in spring arrive in Manhattan, sharp, blue, false. By 11 in the morning, Zara was on her feet in the gallery, with 2 florists, 1 rented harpist, the Beaumont Foundation publicist, and a man from a security firm she had not hired. The unhired man wore a black suit and an earpiece. He said he was here on behalf of the host family. He did not specify which one. Zara assumed Beaumont. She would not learn until much later that he had been put there by Park Tae-jin, on Junho's orders, the moment Junho had seen the guest list and read Nathaniel's name. At 1 in the afternoon, Eleanor Beaumont arrived for a walkthrough. Eleanor was a thin woman with silver blonde hair, pulled into a chignon, and 3 strands of antique pearls at her throat. She walked through the gallery once without speaking, paused at Nathaniel's table, lifted the place card, and put it back exactly where she had found it. "You'll be sitting him near the window," Eleanor said. "Yes. Good. He prefers the light." Zara watched the older woman walk back to the door. At the door, Eleanor turned with the practiced half-smile of a woman who has spent her life ending conversations. "Miss Devereaux, he's been told to behave." Zara said, "Thank you, Mrs. Beaumont." Eleanor left. By 5, Zara was upstairs in the small dressing room, off the gallery office. Marisol was already there in her sommelier vest, glasses pushed up into her copper curls, hands on her hips. "You okay? I'm okay. You look like a queen. I look like a manager. You look like a queen, and you're working through it." That's a worse combination for them, by the way. Marisol crossed to her and adjusted the gold key chain at Zara's throat. The pendant was a tiny brass key, soft from years of being worn. Zara had been wearing it since she was 16. Her grandmother had pressed it into her palm the day Zara left Louisiana for good and had said, in a voice that did not invite questions, "This key opens the place you came from. Keep it. So you can always go back if you want to. So you don't have to if you don't want to." The dress was the ruby red. Floor length, silk with a low draped back. She had picked it 3 weeks ago. She had not picked it tonight. Tonight, if she had been picking, she would have picked something black, something invisible, something she could vanish inside if she had to vanish. "You're staying tonight, right?" Zara asked. "I'm staying." "Good." Marisol turned to leave and stopped with her hand on the door. "Theo told me." "I know. If he touches you, Z, he won't touch me." Zara reached for the lipstick. "He won't get close enough." She was wrong about both. At 6:30, the first guests arrived. By 7:15, the gallery was at capacity. The harpist played in the atrium. Two waiters with white cotton-gloved hands circulated with trays of champagne. Eleanor Beaumont was seated near the front by the windows with 3 trustees from the foundation. Nathaniel arrived at 7:40, 10 minutes late, with a bottle of Bordeaux, already half drunk, dangling from his right hand. Zara watched him from across the room. He had not even handed the bottle to a server. He was walking through her gallery with his own wine, like a man bringing dinner to a fast food counter, and the wine was $1,000 a bottle. His tuxedo jacket was unbuttoned. His tie was a quarter turn-off true. His pale blue eyes found her across the room and stopped. She turned her body a fraction and crossed to the kitchen pass. Devon was already at the table, 6'4", folded arms. Nathaniel did not look at him. Nathaniel was looking at Zara. For the first hour of the dinner, she stayed in the kitchen pass, the back hallway, the office. She let Theo work the floor. She heard the harpist switch into the second set. She heard the polite ripple of the room. She heard, at one point, a sharp laugh from Nathaniel's table that did not belong to anyone seated at it. She did not look. She filed 3 invoices, signed 2 delivery sheets. And at 9:15, she had to walk through the gallery to the south hallway to meet the courier from the wine merchant. There was no other way. She walked through, eyes forward, smile fixed. The atrium was narrow, 3 steps wide, 12 long, between the main dining floor and the rear corridor. The atrium was where the cloakroom was. She turned into the atrium with the courier slip in her hand. Nathaniel was already in the atrium. He had been waiting for her. He held the bottle by the neck the way another man might hold a phone. He had loosened his tie further. The top 3 buttons of his shirt were undone. His hair had fallen forward across his forehead. His eyes were red-rimmed and unfocused. He stood between her and the corridor. Miss Devereux. He drew her name out across 2 beats. Your table's been admiring you. She kept walking. Mr. Beaumont, please return to your seat. He stepped sideways, not far enough to be aggressive. Far enough to make her stop. My mother said you'd be running this thing tonight. She said you were the one with the calendar. He smiled. I want a date. Please return to your seat. On the calendar, he said. I want a date on the calendar, like an actual date. With you, wherever you want. The yacht, the Hamptons, the thing. He waved the bottle vaguely. Wine dripped onto the marble floor between his shoes. Pick something. Pick something nice. She lifted her chin, slightly. The gold key chain caught the gallery light. You're a guest tonight, Mr. Beaumont. Please return to your table. For 3 seconds, nothing happened. Then his face changed. Later, when she would walk this moment back in her head over and over for 9 days in Louisiana, she would remember the change in his face more than the slap. The face she had been negotiating with had been the face of a drunk rich boy. The face that replaced it was the face of an animal who had never been told no in a way that stuck, and who had decided, in the half-second between her sentence and his next breath, that the word would not stick this time either. He lifted the bottle. He tilted it forward. He held it directly over her shoulder and let the wine pour. It hit her clavicle first, then the silk, then the embroidered seam at her waist, then her hip. He moved the bottle as he poured. He emptied it across her body in a slow, controlled line, like he was watering a plant he intended to kill. She did not move. Her hands stayed at her sides. She held his eyes. Now you're dressed for the occasion, he said. He swung the bottle back. He hit her. The strike was open-palmed, the bottle hand swinging back across, the empty bottle in his right hand, and the open palm in his left, and the slap landed across her cheek and jaw with enough force that the gold key chain at her throat snapped clean. The pendant hit the marble. Her head turned. Her vision swam. She put one hand against the wall to keep herself standing. He laughed. It was not a cruel laugh. It was a small, uncertain laugh. The laugh of a man who was already, in the same heartbeat, registering that the thing he had just done was bigger than he had calculated. The laugh of a man trying to convert the act, in real time, back into a joke. She would remember the laugh, too. The laugh would matter later. She did not raise her voice. She put one hand to her cheek, held it there for 2 seconds. Then she crouched, slowly in the ruby red gown, with the wine running down the silk to puddle on the marble. And she picked up the broken chain off the floor, with both hands like she was picking up a small wounded animal. She put the chain in her clutch. She stood. She walked past him toward the corridor. The atrium had 2 witnesses, a waiter and an older Beaumont cousin, who had stepped out for a phone call, and both of them froze. The waiter dropped a tray. The cousin opened his mouth and didn't say anything. Down the gallery, 4 tables away, Marisol had heard the slap. Marisol stood up so fast she knocked her own wine glass off the table. She started moving toward the atrium. Zara passed Marisol in the corridor. Z, office, don't follow. Z, don't follow. Zara closed the office door behind her and locked it. Inside the office, she stood for 9 seconds without moving. She heard her own breathing. She heard the harpist on the other side of the wall, still playing, because the slap had not been loud enough to reach the main floor. Or because the main floor was choosing not to hear it. She walked to the desk. She set her clutch down. She opened the clutch. She took out the broken chain. She set it on the desk next to the closing report from Thursday night. She looked at the chain for a long time. Then she lifted the office phone and dialed Junho. My love, hi. You okay? She heard her own voice answer before she had decided what to do. I'm okay, I fell. The atrium is wet from the caterers. I caught a corner, I'm fine. The other end of the line was silent. She filled the silence the way scared people fill silence. Marisol's here. I'm going to clean up. I'll come home a little late. Don't wait up. I'm okay. Okay, my love. I love you. I love you too. She hung up. She stood with her hand on the receiver for another 30 seconds, and then she pressed both palms against the cold of the office desk and let the first tear go, just one. She caught it on the back of her wrist before it could land on the chain. Across the city, in the penthouse on Park Avenue, Junho was already standing. He had taken the call standing. He had been standing for an hour and a half. He had been watching the security feed of Maison Vert on his desk monitor since the moment the guest list confirmed Nathaniel Beaumont's table. He had seen the wine pour. He had seen the slap. He had seen the chain hit the marble. He had seen her crouch. He set the phone down very gently. Park Tae-jin was already in the doorway of the office, coat on, gloves on, keys in his right hand. Tae-jin had been in the doorway for about 45 seconds. Junho did not look up from the monitor. He said, in Korean, bring me everything Beaumont owns by morning. Tae-jin nodded once. Junho watched the silent feed of his fiancée walking through the atrium, alone, with the wine darkening her hem. He watched her lift her chin. He watched the chain hit the floor and her hands lower to retrieve it. He watched her not cry. He said, still in Korean, still without looking up, and bring me whoever paid him. Tae-jin paused at the doorway. You're sure? I'm sure. And her? Closed his eyes for 1 second. When he opened them, he was already in the coat. He had not moved. He had been in the coat the whole time. He said, I'm going to her now. I'm going to hold her tonight. I'm going to lie to her face one more time. And then in the morning, I'm going to end every life that touched her tonight, slowly and without a single drop of blood she'll ever have to know about. He walked past Tae-jin into the elevator. The doors closed. In the office at Maison Vert, Zara was still standing at the desk with both palms down. Marisol was outside the door now, knocking softly with 2 fingers, asking through the wood if she could come in. Zara reached for the closing report on the desk to slide it over the broken chain. She did not want anyone to see the chain, not even Marisol. Not yet. She crossed to the door. She unlocked it. Marisol stepped in, closed it behind her, and did not say anything. The 2 of them stood in the office in the ruby-stained silk, and the sommelier vest, and the gold-rimmed glasses, and for a long minute neither of them moved. Then Marisol said quietly, Eleanor's gone. What? She left. The minute he hit you. She walked out the side door. Didn't even take her coat, didn't speak to her son, just left. Marisol's voice was flat. She knew before tonight. The way she walked out, she knew. Zara closed her eyes, she opened them, she lifted her chin. Get my coat, she said. Where are we going? Home. I'm going home. You're going home. We're closing the gallery. She picked up the closing report off the desk. She slid the broken chain into the inner pocket of her clutch. She zipped the clutch shut. I called Junho. I told him I fell. Marisol stared at her. Why? Zara reached for her coat. Because, she said, I don't know yet how I want this paid. She did not know yet that she had a fiancé who would not let her decide. She did not know yet. Walking through the back corridor of the gallery she had built into the best in Manhattan, that the man waiting for her in the brownstone at the corner of Park and 81st would kiss her bruised cheek tonight with the gentlest mouth she had ever felt, and that by the time she slumped against his chest, 3 of the Beaumonts' bank accounts would already be frozen. A sealed indictment from the Southern District would already be moving. The name, Nathaniel Beaumont, would already be circulating through a private chat of Korean accountants who answered only to one man, and the man whose chest she was sleeping on would be the one who had typed the first message. She did not know any of it yet. The harpist was still playing in the gallery as she walked out the staff door onto Madison. Junho was on the bench. He stood up when he saw her. He did not say anything. He took her coat off her arm and put it around her shoulders himself. He pulled the lapels closed at the throat. He looked at her face, at the cheek, at the place the chain had been, and his eyes did the thing they only did with her, the softening, the going still, the becoming briefly, for her alone the man he had told her he was. He kissed her temple. Let's go home, my love. She let him take her hand. The wine darkened the silk inside her coat. The chain stayed in the clutch. She walked the 4 blocks with her head against his upper arm and did not look up until she was at her own front door. Inside the apartment, he turned on a single lamp and not the overhead. He filled a small bowl with ice from her freezer. He sat her down on the kitchen stool. He held the bowl against her cheek with one hand and held her hand with the other, and did not ask her any question that would force her to lie to him again. After a long time he kissed the bruise. Then he kissed her mouth. Then he kissed her ring finger, where there was still no ring, where she had left the velvet box on the kitchen counter 4 nights ago, and never opened it. I'll handle it in the morning, he said. She closed her eyes. Okay, sleep! She slept. In the next room, he sat on the edge of her sofa in the dark with his phone in his hand and typed a single Korean character. The syndicates go ahead, into a private chat with 3 accountants and 2 lawyers. The character was the word enough. He held send for 1 second before he pressed it. He pressed it. The phone vibrated back almost immediately. The Beaumont stock would open Monday at a price that would shave 11% off in the first hour. The harpist had stopped playing. The night was over. In the morning, when Zara woke, the bruise on her cheek would be a faint purple shadow under foundation. She would tell Junho she didn't want to talk about it. He would say, okay. He would kiss her temple. He would bring her coffee. He would go to work. She would not yet open the velvet box. She would not yet know what had been done in her name. 3 days from now, she would feel relief. 6 days from now, she would feel suspicion. 9 days from now, she would be in Louisiana on her grandmother's porch, watching a man named Park Tae-jin set a thin manila folder on the railing and step back 2 paces. But that was 9 days away. Tonight, Zara Devereaux slept against the chest of a man whose tattoo she had not yet looked at carefully. And the man held her with a stillness so complete that anyone watching from the doorway would have mistaken him for a statue carved to guard her. He stayed awake all night. In Korean, into the dark of her bedroom, where she could not hear it, he said 1 sentence quietly into her hair. Nobody touches you twice. Outside on Madison, the rain that had been threatening all day finally began to fall. 6 days later, Zara stood in her grandmother's kitchen in Baton Rouge and watched the rain hit the bayou through the screen door. She had been there for 1 day. She had been gone from Manhattan for 2. She had not turned on her phone. The grandmother, Pearl May Devereaux, 81 years old, retired short-order cook of the diner on Highway 61, was at the stove making rice and gravy without asking any questions. Pearl May had opened the door at 10 the night before and had not asked a single question. She had taken Zara's bag. She had pointed at the kitchen chair. She had put on a pot of water. That was the entire conversation. Zara stood at the screen door now and watched a heron lift out of the wet grass. She thought about how she had gotten here. She thought about Sunday morning, 3 days after the slap, when she had opened the velvet box on the kitchen counter while Junho was in the shower. The ring inside was an emerald, square cut, set in a thin platinum band, the stone the size of her thumbnail. Old stone, older than the band. She had known immediately that the emerald had belonged to someone before her. She had set the ring back in the box and closed the box and not mentioned it to him when he came out of the shower with the towel around his hips. He had seen her face. He had not asked. She thought about Monday morning, when she had read the financial news on her phone in the gallery office and seen the headline that Beaumont Holdings had lost 11% of its market value before the bell. She had told herself it was a coincidence. She thought about Tuesday morning, when the second headline had appeared, a sealed federal indictment leak naming a Beaumont yacht crew a sexual misconduct case, a name being passed around the financial newspapers like a small fish in a net. She had told herself, again, it was a coincidence. She thought about Wednesday afternoon, when Marisol had taken her arm in the wine cellar, walked her to the back shelf behind the older Burgundies, slid out a long file box, lifted a yellowed invoice off the top, and said, "Z, I want you to look at this without making a face." The invoice was from 3 years ago. The supplier was CO Import Group. The signature on the supplier line was Junho's. Zara had stood with that invoice in her hand for almost a full minute, in the wine cellar sombre that smelled like cedar and lavender, and at the end of that minute she had asked Marisol very quietly, "How many? How many what? How many invoices?" 68, Marisol said, "going back 3 years and 4 months. And the gallery's been here for 3 years and 4 months. The two women had looked at each other. Marisol had said, "He owns the building too, Z. I called the landlord today. The landlord works for a holding company. The holding company is registered to CO Import." Zara had set the invoice back down on the wine box very carefully. She had walked out of the cellar. She had walked back to her office. She had not gone home that night. She had taken a train to Penn Station. She had taken another train to Newark. From Newark, she had flown to New Orleans. From New Orleans, she had rented a car and driven the last hour to Pearl May's house on the highway. She had turned off her phone before she got in the car at the airport. Now Pearl May was at the stove, and the rain was hitting the bayou, and Zara was standing at the screen door, and she was trying to understand whether the man she had been sleeping next to for 2 years had given her a life on purpose. She wasn't sure which answer was worse. It would be 3 more days before Park Tae-jin walked up the porch. By the time he did, Zara would already have stopped sleeping. She would already have stopped eating. She would already have started writing notes to herself on the back of receipts about every conversation with Junho she could remember. Every time he had mentioned the gallery before he was supposed to know about it. Every time he had named a colleague she had never introduced, every quiet correction he had made to her own memory of how they had met that she had not noticed at the time. She would be ready for the manila folder when it came. She did not know it was a manila folder yet. She only knew that something in her had ended on a marble atrium floor in Manhattan 6 nights ago, and something else had not yet begun. She turned away from the screen door. Grandma. Pearl May did not turn from the stove. Did you ever marry somebody you didn't really know? Pearl May stirred the pot once, twice. She set the spoon down on the rest. She wiped her hands on the towel hung over her shoulder. She said, "Baby, everybody marries somebody they don't really know." Zara closed her eyes. Pearl May picked the spoon up again. "The question," she said, "is whether you'd marry them anyway." The rain hit the screen door. Zara did not answer. In Manhattan, in a basement room of a converted warehouse on the Brooklyn Navy Yard that she did not yet know existed, Seo Junho was already 3 days into the dismantling of Nathaniel Beaumont, and Park Tae-jin was already standing in a hallway outside that basement with a thin manila folder under his arm, waiting for a single Korean word from the man inside the room. The word, when it came, would be go. She would board a plane to New Orleans an hour later. But tonight, in Louisiana, Zara was still standing in her grandmother's kitchen with the question she could not answer hanging in the air, and the rain was still falling, and the harpist in Manhattan was no longer playing because Maison Vert had been closed for 6 days, on Zara's instruction, with the explanation that the manager was unwell. The gold key chain was in her coat pocket on the chair by the door. She had not yet asked herself how she wanted this paid, but she would. And the slap that had echoed once in a Manhattan atrium would echo back, in 9 days, on a porch in Baton Rouge, in the voice of a quiet Korean man with a scar through his eyebrow and a manila folder set down so gently on the railing that the railing did not even creak. The rest of Part 2 begins the morning Park Tae-jin lands. Part 2 opens with Park Tae-jin at the porch and pushes through beats 3 and 4. The engine that binds them, the love built only revealed in installments, and the midpoint turn, Zara sees the serpent tattoo fully exposed. This part is set in 2 tracks. Zara's parallel investigation in Manhattan after Tae-jin's first contact, and Junho's parallel destruction of Nathaniel. Converging at the moment, Zara walks back into her own bedroom on day 8, climbs into bed next to her fiancé, and watches the serpent surface on his neck when he turns in his sleep. But Tae-jin does not arrive at the porch yet. Not in Part 2. Part 2 belongs to the suspicion and the proof. Tae-jin's manila folder belongs to Part 4. So, Part 2 opens, instead, with the morning of day 3, after the slap. The Tuesday morning, Zara reads the second Beaumont headline in her gallery, office, and the moment she first considers the possibility, out loud to nobody, that the man who kissed her bruised cheek in the dark might not have been telling the truth about anything. She is alone in the office. She is looking at the wedding dress hanging on the back of the office door. The dress she picked 4 months ago, 3 days after Junho proposed without a ring on a Tuesday morning over coffee. The dress is ivory, off-shoulder, trumpet skirt. It is wrapped in clear plastic from the seamstress. She is looking at it. She is reading the news on her phone. She is not breathing easily. The phone in her hand vibrates. It is Marisol. The text reads, "Seller now, bring nothing." Zara stands. She does not yet know that the invoice Marisol is about to show her is the door that opens onto everything else. She does not yet know that the man she is going to marry has already this morning ordered the second wave of Nathaniel's destruction without telling her, and that this second wave is not financial. This second wave is the leak of an audio recording. The recording is from the maid Nathaniel paid off when he was 16. The maid is now 35. She has been paid not to talk for 19 years. She has this morning been paid more by a Korean accountant she has never met to talk now. The recording will hit a New York tabloid by sunset. Eleanor Beaumont will lock herself in her bedroom with a bottle of pills she will not take and a phone she will not answer. Nathaniel Beaumont will not come home tonight. He will not come home tomorrow night. He will not come home for a week. The Beaumont family will, in fact, never see him again as the man he was on Saturday at the gala. The man on the chair in the basement is no longer producing, but Zara does not know any of this yet. She is walking down the back stairs to the wine cellar in her sensible flats. She is about to look at an invoice, and the slap is about to become a much bigger story than the slap. Marisol was already in the cellar with the lights low. She had her copper curls clipped behind her ears and the Somali vest unbuttoned at the top. The cellar smelled of cedar and wet stone. The 300-bottle wall behind her held the burgundies, the older ones, the ones nobody ordered on a weeknight. She had a long, flat box on the tasting table in front of her. The box was open. The papers inside the box were yellow at the corners. "Close the door," Marisol said. Zara closed the door. "Lock it." Zara locked it. Marisol turned the lamp on the tasting table to its lowest setting and lifted the top invoice off the stack. She held it by the edges. She did not hand it across. She turned it around so Zara could read it without touching it. "This is the first invoice from CO Import Group to Maison Vert," Marisol said. Date, March 14, 3 years ago. Item, 42 cases of Korean rice wine for the spring menu. Sign-off line at the bottom. Zara read the signature. The signature was in black ballpoint, square Korean characters in a steady, neat hand. Then, underneath, in Latin script in the same pen, Seo Jun-ho, director. Zara closed her eyes for 1 second. When she opened them, Marisol had already moved to the next invoice. Second invoice. 4 months later, cases of premium soju, same signature. Marisol set it down. Third invoice, 6 months in. Antique porcelain table service for the private room, same signature. She set it down. Fourth invoice, the wines from Saturday night's gala. Marisol paused. Same signature. Stop. Marisol stopped. Zara took a step back from the table. She did not sit down. She did not lean. She put both hands at her sides. She looked at the floor for a count of 5. "You said 68. 68. Over 3 years and 4 months. And the gallery opened 3 years and 4 months ago. Marisol." Zara raised her head. "Tell me what you're telling me." Marisol closed the box. She crossed the tasting table. She stood in front of Zara and lowered her voice the way she lowered her voice with tasting. Clients who were upset said about a corked bottle. "I'm telling you," Marisol said, "that the man you live with has been the supplier of this gallery since the day this gallery opened. I'm telling you that he supplied the wine you served the night you met him in the front of the house. The night he came in for the jazz set and pretended he had never been in here before." Zara's jaw set. "I'm telling you," Marisol said, "that he didn't meet you that night. He arranged to meet you that night." The two women looked at each other in the cellar lamp. Zara said, in a voice that was almost calm, "What else? The building. What about the building?" "I called the landlord." "The landlord is a property manager. The property manager works for Greystone Holdings, LLC. Greystone Holdings is registered in Delaware. Greystone Holdings owns this building." "Okay. Greystone is a subsidiary of CO Import Group," Zara said Marisol. "He owns it, Z. He owns the building. He owns the building. Since when?" "Since 2 months before the gallery opened." Zara walked to the wall of burgundies. She put one hand against the cool of the brick beside the bottles. She bent her head down slightly. Her hair fell forward. Marisol did not move. For a long moment, the only sound in the cellar was the small hum of the climate control. Then Zara said, "Did he know? Did he know what? Did he know I was here before he met me?" Marisol said nothing. Zara turned. "Did he know? Z, you don't go to that much trouble to bump into somebody at a jazz set accident." Zara closed her eyes again. She opened them. She lifted her chin. She walked back to the tasting table. She put one hand flat on the closed box. "Burn the second copies," she said. "Z, there are second copies of these invoices, vendor copies. There have to be. They're somewhere in the office. Burn them. Tonight, after service." "Are you sure? I want him to think I haven't seen them. I need a little time." "Time for what?" "Time to decide." "Decide what?" Zara picked up her flats one at a time and walked toward the cellar door. At the door she turned. "Decide," she said, "whether I'm angry he lied or angry he didn't tell me." Marisol watched her unlock the door and go. In the office, Zara closed the door, sat down in her chair, did not turn on the desk lamp, did not pick up the phone, did not check the news. She sat in the dark for a full 8 minutes. Then she picked up the desk phone, not her mobile, and called the head of catering. Maison Vert is closing for the rest of the week. Refund all reservations, pay the staff their hours. The lights go off tonight at 9. The doors lock at 9:15. I will be back when I am back. She hung up. She sat for 2 more minutes. She picked up the mobile. She did not call Junho. She texted Junho, working late tonight. Don't wait up. Love you. The dots on his end appeared immediately, then disappeared, then appeared again, then a message came back. Of course, my love. I'll be at home when you get back. Take your time, eat something. I love you. She set the phone face down on the desk. She did not eat something. At 8, she went home. She walked into the apartment, and Junho was at the kitchen counter slicing a pear into thin, even slices on the wooden board she had inherited from her grandmother. He had taken his suit jacket off. He was in the white dress shirt with the sleeves rolled up. The serpent tattoo at his neck was almost fully hidden by his collar. Almost. He saw her face. He set the knife down. He crossed to her. He kissed her temple. Bad day? She put her bag on the counter. Long day. You eat? No. Sit. She sat at the kitchen island. He went back to the pear. He plated the slices in a fan. He added a small wedge of aged cheddar and 3 water crackers. He set it in front of her with a glass of cold water. He kissed the top of her head and went back to the counter to clean the knife. She watched his back. She watched the way his shoulder blade moved under the dress shirt. As he rinsed the knife, she watched the muscle of his right forearm when he reached for the dish towel. She watched the half-inch of black ink that was visible above his collar at the back of his neck. She had not, in 2 years of looking at it, looked at it like this before. She said, Junho. He turned. Take off your shirt. He smiled, a small, surprised smile. The smile of a man assuming a different conversation. Right now? Right now. He set the towel down. He crossed back to her. He unbuttoned the shirt from the top, 1 button at a time, the way he always did when she asked, watching her face. He let it fall off his shoulders to the floor. She was not looking at his chest. She was looking at the side of his neck. The serpent was fully visible now, without the collar in the way. It started at his collarbone and curled up the left side of his neck, the body coiled in a single perfect loop, and at the jawline the serpent's head was biting its own tail. The ink was black. The line was clean. The tattoo was not new. The tattoo was old. She looked at it for 10 full seconds without speaking. He did not interrupt her. He had, on some level, been waiting for this moment since the night he met her. She said, It bites itself. Yes. Why? He held her eyes. It's the seal, he said quietly, of a Korean trade family. Your family. My family. You never told me your family had a seal. You never asked. She held the half-truth between them in the kitchen for a count of 3. Then she said, Come to bed. He came to bed. He held her without asking what had changed. She held him without telling him what had changed. They slept face to face. He was awake first. He watched her sleep with a stillness she could feel even unconscious. At 3 in the morning, she opened her eyes, and the dark of his eyes was already on her. He did not flinch. He did not look away. She did not either. She said in a whisper, Tell me one true thing. He said in a whisper, I would die before I let anyone touch you again. She closed her eyes. That, at least, was not a lie. In the morning, she got up before him. She showered. She dressed in dark jeans and a black turtleneck. She went into the kitchen. She made 2 coffees. She set one next to the bed for him. She drank hers standing at the counter, watching the sun come up across the Manhattan rooftops, and she made a decision. She was going to follow him. She had 36 hours until she had to be back at the gallery to reopen. She was going to use them. She would that night slip her own jacket off the coat rack and tail his black car across the Brooklyn Navy Yard. And she would find a service door, and she would find a basement, and she would find Nathaniel Beaumont tied to a chair. But that was Thursday night. Today was Wednesday. Today she had to go to the wine cellar and burn the second copies of 68 invoices. She did. Marisol stood beside her at the loading dock incinerator at 6:30 in the evening. and the two of them fed the paper into the chute one sheet at a time. The flames took each one with a small soft sound. Neither of them spoke. When the last invoice went into the chute, Maris crossed her arms and said in a flat voice, "Z, whatever you're about to do." "I know, I'm in, I know," Marisol nodded. She lit the small, ritual cigarette she only smoked on closing nights. She did not offer Zara one. Zara had never smoked. Zara took it anyway. She did not light it. She just held it. She said, "Marisol, if I don't come back by Friday morning, don't. Call my grandmother, Pearl May, Baton Rouge. There's a sticky note on my desk drawer." Marisol exhaled the smoke through her nose. "You're coming back by Friday morning. If I don't," Marisol said, "then I call Pearl May, and then I burn everything else in the office. And then I go to the cops with 68 invoices I haven't burned the originals of." Zara almost smiled. She handed the unlit cigarette back. "Thank you." They closed the loading dock. That night, Zara went home and made dinner with her fiancé and watched a film on the sofa with her head against his chest. He stroked her hair. She was looking at the screen, but she was listening to his heartbeat. It was the steadiest heartbeat she had ever heard. It did not change pace when the film built tension. It did not change pace when her own pulse picked up against his ribs. He was a man whose body did not betray him. She thought, that's what I should have noticed first. At 12:30, he kissed her shoulder, said he had a late call with a supplier in Busan, and went to the home office. She pretended to fall asleep on the sofa. At 1:15, the front door clicked. She opened her eyes. She counted to 90. She got up. She put on her coat. She went down the back stairs of the brownstone. She got in her own car. The black sedan was already pulling away from the corner. She followed 3 cars back. The black sedan crossed the Brooklyn Bridge. The black sedan went south on the BQE. The black sedan exited at the Navy Yard. The black sedan turned into a service road behind a row of converted warehouses. The black sedan disappeared into a roll-up door that closed behind it. Zara parked 2 streets over. She got out of the car. She walked to the warehouse. She did not approach the roll-up door. She walked the perimeter. On the east side there was a service door, the one Marisol had marked for her on a delivery map the day before. The map was 3 years old. The lock had not been changed. Marisol had reached out to an old supplier and gotten the code. Marisol had not asked Zara what she was going to do with it. Zara punched in the code. The door clicked open. She went inside. The warehouse smelled like dry plywood and machine oil. The lights were off in the main floor. The lights were on in the basement. She heard a voice she knew. She heard her fiancé's voice. She had never heard him speak like this. He was speaking in English. He was speaking slowly. His voice was lower than the voice he used with her. Not deeper, slower, smother. There was no anger in it. There was no warmth in it. It was the voice of a man reading a will. She walked to the top of the basement stairs and stopped. She could see down through the open doorway at the bottom of the stairs. In the middle of the room was a chair. A man was tied to the chair. The man was Nathaniel Beaumont. He was crying. He had not been struck. There was no blood. There were no marks on him. He had been crying for a long time. He was wearing the same shirt he had worn at the gala. The shirt was no longer white. Standing in front of him was Junho. Junho's shirt was open at the collar. The serpent tattoo was fully visible. His sleeves were rolled to the elbow. His hands were behind his back. He was speaking. He was reciting Nathaniel's life. He was reading from no paper. Zara heard, in that lower, slower voice she did not recognize, "Westport Academy, class of 2015. The transcript your father bought for you. The boy your father had expelled in your place. His name was Marcus Chen. He never got into college. He works at a tire shop in New Haven now. We've moved him. He'll be told who paid by Friday." Nathaniel sobbed. Junho did not stop. The maid at the summer house, Christina Reyes. "You were 16. She was 19. You paid her $17,000 over 4 years to stay quiet. We paid her $100,000 this morning to talk." The interview airs tonight. Zara put one hand against the wall at the top of the stairs. Junho turned a quarter turn. He did not look up at the stairs. He had not seen her yet. He kept his voice in the same flat, slow register. He shifted to a name from much earlier in Nathaniel's life. A tutor. A name Zara did not recognize. A story she did not know. The story did not matter. What mattered was that her fiancé knew every name in the room. He had known every name before he walked into the room. He had walked into the room with the names already inside him. Zara made a sound. It was the smallest possible sound. It was the sound of her own breath leaving her. Junho looked up. He saw her. Their eyes met across the basement. He did not flinch. Park Taejin was standing in the corner of the basement room with his arms folded. Taejin did not move either. Taejin did not look surprised. Taejin had, in fact, been the one who told Junho 30 seconds ago that the side door had been opened. Taejin had advised Junho to leave. Junho had stayed. Junho said gently in his ordinary voice, the voice he used with her, "Go home, my love. I'll be there in an hour." Zara could not move. He took a step toward the stairs. She took a step back. He stopped. He held her eyes. He said quietly, "I won't follow you. Go home. I'll be there in an hour, please." She turned and walked back up the stairs without speaking. She walked out through the service door. She walked the 2 streets back to her car. She did not cry until she was inside the car, with the door closed and her forehead pressed against the steering wheel. She did not go home. She drove to LaGuardia. She parked. She left the keys at the desk for Marisol to pick up. She walked into the terminal at 4 in the morning. She bought a one-way ticket to New Orleans on the first flight. She turned her phone off at the gate. She did not turn it back on. At 8 in the morning, she landed in New Orleans. At 10, she was on Pearl May's porch. At 10:15 in Brooklyn, Junho was in the back of the black sedan with her head resting against the cold of the window, the basement long behind him, Taejin driving, neither of them speaking. Junho's phone was face up on the seat next to him. The phone had not rung. It would not ring. He would not call her. He had told her once, very early, on the 5th night they had ever spent together, after she had asked him what he wanted from her, "If you ever leave, I won't chase. I'll wait. You decide when you come back." He had meant it. He was about to find out what it cost. Across the country, in Baton Rouge, Pearl May opened the screen door at 10:15 in the morning. She did not look surprised. She had heard the cab on the gravel before Zara knocked. She stepped aside. "Come in, baby." Zara came in. "You hungry?" "No, you will be." Pearl May put a pot of water on for grits. Zara sat at the kitchen table and looked at her hands. Pearl May said, with her back to the room, "You leaving him?" "I don't know." "You leaving him for the right reason?" "I don't know." Pearl May nodded slowly. "Then sit there till you do." Zara stayed at the table. The grits came up. She ate them. She had not eaten in 28 hours. She slept for 14. When she woke up in the small back bedroom she had grown up in, the gold key chain was on the bedside table where Pearl May had set it after finding it in Zara's coat pocket. The chain was in 2 pieces. The brass key pendant was small in the lamplight. Zara stared at it for a long time. She picked it up. She held the broken ends together where the link had snapped. She did not yet know what she was going to do, but for the first time in a week she was not pretending she did not know what had happened. Her fiancé had been the man in the basement. Her fiancé had been the supplier of the gallery. Her fiancé had been the owner of the building. Her fiancé had a tattoo of a serpent that was the seal of something her fiancé had told her was a family. Her fiancé's was not he had told her he was. The question was no longer whether to go back. The question was whether the love that had been built on top of all of this had been real. She did not have an answer. Pearl May knocked on the door at 11 that night, with a glass of water and a slice of pound cake. She did not say anything. She set the plate on the dresser. She left. Zara held the chain. In Manhattan, Junho was sitting in his home office in the dark. He had been in the dark for 19 hours. He had not gone to her apartment. He had not opened her closet. He had not touched the ring she had not yet put on. He had told Taejin one thing and one thing only. Don't go after her. She comes back on her own, or she doesn't. Taejin had said, and if she doesn't? Junho had not answered. In Brooklyn, on a different floor of a different warehouse, 3 Cheongdo accountants were assembling a thin manila folder. The folder contained photographs of Han So-yeon meeting Nathaniel Beaumont 3 weeks before the gala. The folder contained bank transfers. The folder contained an audio recording. The folder contained a printout of an old council ultimatum. The folder was for Zara. It would not, however, be sent to her by Junho. It would be hand-delivered by Park Taejin without his Daijusga's permission. Taejin had decided that himself. Taejin would, on the morning of day 10, board a small plane to New Orleans with the folder under his arm. He would land at noon. He would rent a sedan. He would drive an hour. He would arrive at Pearl May's porch in the late afternoon, alone, no driver, no weapon visible. He would set the folder on the porch railing. He would step back 2 paces. He would say, "He told me not to come. I came anyway. Read it. Then decide." And Zara, who had been sitting on that porch for 3 days reading the chain in her own hands, would lift her head, and the second act of the story would close. But that was tomorrow. Tonight, Zara held the broken chain in the lamplight in the back bedroom of her grandmother's house, and Junho sat in the dark in his home office in Manhattan, and 3,000 miles between them held the weight of every word he had not told her, and the slap that had started the story was no longer the loudest sound in either of their heads. The loudest sound, now, was the silence between new people deciding what love survives. Park Taejin arrived at the porch on a Tuesday. It had been 10 days since the slap. It had been 4 days since Zara had walked out of the warehouse basement. The afternoon light was yellow on the bayou grass. A heron stood in the marsh 30 yards from the porch with one leg lifted. Pearl May was inside the house listening to gospel radio at low volume. Zara was on the porch in a caneback rocking chair, wearing a faded denim shirt of her grandmother's, with her own hands resting on a manila envelope that was not yet the manila folder she was about to receive. This was an older envelope from Pearl May's filing cabinet, containing photographs of a woman she had never met. The woman in the photographs was Zara's mother. Zara had asked Pearl May the night before for everything Pearl May had kept. Pearl May had brought down a shoebox from the top of the closet without comment, set it on Zara's bed, and gone back downstairs. Inside the shoebox there had been the photographs, some letters, a pair of small gold earrings, a folded napkin from the diner Pearl May had worked at on Highway 61, and at the bottom, in Pearl May's careful, slow handwriting, a single index card. The index card had read, his name was Wallace Beaumont III. He drove a Navy Mercedes. He told her he loved her. He left when she was 6 months along. He sent $500 a year until she died. He never met you. You are not his. Zara had stared at the index card for an hour. Wallace Beaumont, the same name, the same family, the same cousin to the man who had slapped her at the gala. The man whose son's son had grown up to pour Bordeaux down the front of a black woman in a ruby red dress in a gallery in Manhattan, 31 years after Wallace had walked away from a teenage Pearl May's daughter. On the side of a Louisiana highway, she had not slept. She had sat on the porch since dawn. She had not told Pearl May what she had read. Pearl May had not asked. A sedan turned off the highway at 3:40 in the afternoon. It was a dark blue rental. It came up the gravel slowly. Zara stood up. She did not call for Pearl May. She watched the sedan stop 15 feet from the porch steps. The driver's door opened. A Korean man in a dark suit got out alone. He had a scar through his right eyebrow. He had a thin manila folder under his left arm. He had no driver. He had no weapon visible. He was Park Taejin. He did not approach the porch steps. He stopped at the bottom of them and held the folder out flat in front of him with both hands, the way a man might offer a passport at a checkpoint. Miss Devereaux, Taejin. He did not look surprised that she knew his name. He said in English, "He told me not to come. I came anyway. Read it, then decide." She did not move. He set the folder on the porch railing. He stepped back 2 paces. He folded his hands in front of him. He waited. Zara walked to the railing. She picked up the folder. She did not open it. She held it in both hands and looked at the man on her grandmother's lawn. She said, "You drove from the airport." "Yes, alone, yes. He doesn't know you're here." "No. Why?" Taejin held her eyes. "Because," he said, "you are the only thing he has ever loved more than the syndicate. And if you stay gone, the syndicate will eat him alive within a year. Not because he will fight them. Because he will stop fighting them. And I have known him since we were 16, and I am not willing to watch that happen." He paused. "Also," he said, "because what is in that folder is the truth, and you deserve to know the truth before you decide whether to come back." He did not say please. He did not say for him. He bowed once, from the waist, and walked back to the rental. He sat in the driver's seat. He did not start the engine. He waited. Zara opened the folder. The first page was a photograph. The photograph was of 2 people sitting at a small low table in the corner of a hotel bar in Midtown Manhattan. One of the people was Han So-yeon. Zara did not know her name yet. The woman was Korean, elegant, in an ivory silk dress, with a small mole below her left eye. The other person's was Nathaniel Beaumont. Nathaniel was leaning across the table. He was smiling. He was reaching for the woman's wine glass. The timestamp on the photograph was 3 weeks before the gala. Zara turned the page. The second page was a bank wire transfer record. Source account, a shell company registered in Singapore. Destination account, Nathaniel Beaumont's personal checking. Amount, $250,000. Date, 8 days before the gala. Zara turned the page. The third page was a transcript. The transcript was of a phone conversation in English. Zara read 3 lines and stopped reading. The 3 lines were these. Han So-yeon, he won't drop her on his own. The council won't move on her if he hasn't been publicly shamed first. So you shame her. You hit her where the cameras are. Hard enough to bruise. Hard enough that other men talk. Nathaniel Beaumont and the bottle. Han So-yeon. Yes, with the bottle. So she's wearing his money on her dress when she walks out. Zara closed her eyes. She turned the page. The 4th page was a council document. It was in Korean on the left and an English translation on the right. The document was dated 6 months before the gala. It was an ultimatum from the Cheongdo Council of Elders to Seo Jun-ho, Dae-jang. The ultimatum read, "Marry Han So-yeon, daughter of Han Min-suk, before the end of the fiscal year. Failure will be interpreted by the council as confirmation that the black foreigner in Manhattan is a personal weakness in the Daejong's command, and the foreigner will be removed from the Daejong's life before the year ends, by means determined at the council's discretion." Underneath, in handwritten Korean, with the English translation in parentheses, Jun-ho had written a single line of response. "Then I die first." Zara stood with the folder open in both hands for a long minute. Taejin had not moved from the rental. She turned the page. The 5th page was something she had not expected. It was a printout of a real estate document. The document was a building deed. The building was the Manhattan brownstone she lived in, the corner of Park and 81st. The deed was in her name. It was dated 2 days after Jun-ho had proposed. It had been transferred from Greystone Holdings LLC to Zara Devereaux. Single name, no co-owner, for the sum of $1. There was a note clipped to the deed. The note was in English in Jun-ho's hand. The note read, "Whatever happens to me, the apartment is yours. The gallery, when the smoke clears, will be too. I never wanted you to need me to keep what you built. I only wanted you to keep me anyway." Zara closed the folder. She walked to the porch steps. She sat down on the top step. She put the folder beside her. She looked at the heron in the marsh. After a long time, she said, without raising her voice, "Taejin." Taejin opened the rental door. He got out. He walked halfway to the porch. "How did he know I was here?" Taejin paused. He didn't, Taejin said. He knows nothing since you left the warehouse. I came looking for you. It took 3 days. Your grandmother is not in any public record under her own name. Zara almost smiled. She wouldn't be, she said. She picked the folder back up. She stood. She said, I need 15 minutes. Take them. She went inside. Pearl May was at the stove making okra. She did not turn around. Zara said, Grandma. I'm going back. They're going to come for me. Probably tonight. Pearl May turned a quarter and looked at her granddaughter over the top of her glasses. Who's they? People who decided I was going to be the lesson my fiancé wasn't allowed to keep. Pearl May nodded once. She turned off the burner. She walked to the cabinet. She took down a small lacquered box from the top shelf. She set the box on the table in front of Zara. She opened the box. Inside the box was a small revolver, a cleaning cloth, and a single envelope addressed in Zara's mother's handwriting. Pearl May said, Your mother left you that envelope. I never opened it. I said I'd give it to you when you knew enough to need it. She closed the lid of the lacquered box. I'm giving it to you now. Zara took the envelope. She did not open it. She put it in the inside pocket of the denim shirt. Pearl May closed the lacquered box and put it back on the top shelf. She said, The revolver stays here. You don't need it. You got a Korean. Zara laughed once. The laugh broke something in her chest. Pearl May crossed to her, kissed her once on the forehead and said, Go finish it. Come back if you can. Don't come back if you can't. Either way, I'll be here. Zara walked out onto the porch. Taejin was already at the foot of the steps. Drive me back, she said. He nodded. I have to make one stop in New Orleans first. For what? For a dress. Taejin's mouth twitched. It was almost a smile. Yes, ma'am. They got in the rental. The rental left the gravel at 4:15 in the afternoon. By 6, they were at the airport. By 8, they were in the air. In Manhattan, at 8:30 Eastern Time, a black SUV with diplomatic plates pulled to the curb outside Pearl May's house on Highway 61. 3 men got out. They went up the porch. Pearl May opened the door before they knocked. She looked at them. She said, She left an hour ago. The lead man, a tall Korean man with thinning hair, said, in lightly accented English, Ma'am, do you know where she went? Pearl May smiled. Officer, she said, I'm 81 and I don't go to bed until midnight. I'd love to ask you in for coffee, but I don't think we'd enjoy each other's company. She closed the door. The men stood on the porch for a count of 15. They left. Pearl May locked the door. She went to the cabinet. She took down the lacquered box. She did not open it. She set it next to the screen door with the cleaning cloth folded on top. Then she went to the stove. She turned the burner back on. The okra finished cooking. She ate it standing up. The radio was still playing gospel. In Manhattan at 11:15 at night, the rental Taejin had switched into at LaGuardia pulled up to a side door of Maison Vert. Zara got out. She had changed in the airport bathroom. She was wearing a wine-dark velvet column dress with long sleeves and a high collar. The dress she had bought at a boutique in the French Quarter that afternoon for $970, paid in cash, because she did not want any card she had ever used with Junho to put her on the grid before she had a chance to choose her own entrance. Marisol was waiting at the side door. Marisol took one look at Zara and said, Z, bring me the ledger. Which ledger? The wine ledger. The one in the cellar. The one with hand cosmetics on it. Marisol's eyes widened. Z, you told me 3 weeks ago that Hand Cosmetics had stopped paying their tab. You showed me a sheet. I did. The sheet had names on it. 3 names. It did. I want the sheet. Marisol did not ask why. She went and got it. She brought it back inside 2 minutes. Zara folded it once. She put it inside the velvet clutch. She kissed Marisol on the cheek and said, If I'm not back by morning, burn it the way we burned the others. Marisol said, I'll wait. Zara walked back to the rental. Taejin opened the door for her. She said, Drive me to the brownstone. I want him to see me to one time before they take me. Taejin paused. He doesn't know you're back, Taejin said. I know. I should radio. Don't. He held her eyes for a moment. He nodded. He drove her to Park and 81st. She got out alone. She walked up the stoop. She let herself in with her own key. She closed the door behind her. The apartment was dark. He was in the kitchen. He had not turned on a light. He was standing at the kitchen counter with one hand on the marble, the other hand at his side, the way he had stood, the night he gave her the velvet box. The serpent at his neck was a faint outline in the streetlight from the window. He saw her in the dark. He did not move. She walked to him. She put one hand against his chest. She felt his heart through the dress shirt. It was, for the first time in 2 years, beating fast. She kissed him once. She said, "I read everything." He closed his eyes. She said, "I'm not staying." He opened his eyes. "They're going to come for me," she said. "I'm going to let them. I want you to walk in there. I want you to do what you came to do. And I want you to do it knowing that I read it. All of it. The deed, the note, the line you wrote back to the council, the 5 words." He did not move. She said, "I'll see you at the table." She kissed him again. She walked back out. He stood at the counter without moving for a full count of 30. Then he reached into his inside pocket and took out a small black velvet pouch. Inside the pouch was the patriarch's signet ring, onyx and gold, carved with the Cheongdo seal. He held it in his palm. He said in Korean, into the dark of the apartment, "Tonight then." He put the ring back in the pouch. He put the pouch in the inside pocket of his suit. He walked out. The black sedan was waiting at the curb. Taejin was driving. Taejin said, "She told you the plan," Junho said. "She told me she would see me at the table." Taejin nodded. The sedan pulled away from the curb. 2 blocks later, on Lexington, a second black SUV with diplomatic plates pulled up alongside a woman in a wine, dark velvet dress walking calmly toward the subway. The men inside the SUV did not raise their voices. They did not put a hood over her. They opened the door. She got in. She did not resist. She was driven in silence to a townhouse on the Upper East Side that the Cheongdo had only used 3 times in 80 years. The Council of Elders was already seated at the long, lacquered table. Han So-yeon was already standing behind her father. Zura walked in. Her hands were not bound. She had been treated, by the men who collected her, the way men collect a queen they are about to insult. The bound hands would come later for the camera that Han So-yeon planned to use. Zara did not look at Han So-yeon. Zara looked at Elder Choi Sang-hoon. She lifted her chin. She said, in English, "Mr. Choi, we need to talk." Elder Choi smiled the small, slow smile of a man who has waited a long time to enjoy a moment. He said, "Miss Devereaux, we will. After your fiancé arrives, he should be here within the hour. Until then, please, sit. We will not insult you. We will not bind you. We are not animals." He gestured to a chair. Zara walked to the chair. She sat down. She crossed her legs at the ankle. She placed her clutch on the table in front of her. Inside the clutch was the wine ledger sheet with 3 names on it. Inside the inside pocket of her dress was a sealed envelope from her mother she had not yet read. She looked at Elder Choi across the lacquered table. She said, "While we wait, Mr. Choi, may I offer you a small gift?" Elder Choi raised one silver eyebrow. "A gift. A gesture of respect," Zara said. "It will save us all a great deal of time." She slid the wine ledger sheet across the table. Elder Choi picked it up. He looked at it. His silver eyebrow lowered. His mouth tightened almost imperceptibly. The 3 names on the sheet were the 3 Singapore shell companies that had been routing Han Cosmetics money through Maison Vert for the past 19 months. The 4th column on the sheet, handwritten by Marisol, in the margin, in green ink, was the offshore account those 3 companies had been depositing into. The offshore account was Elder Choi Sang-hoon's. Elder Choi did not say anything for a long time. Across the room, Han So-yeon had not yet noticed the change in her father figure's posture. Zara held Elder Choi's eyes. She said very quietly, "Mr. Choi, I would like, when my fiancé arrives, for the council to take the position that there has been a misunderstanding. I think we can all agree that would be best for everyone." Elder Choi set the sheet down. He looked at Zara. For the first time in 40 years, Elder Choi Sang-hoon underestimated nobody. He said, in a voice softer than he had used all evening, "Miss Devereaux, would you like tea while we wait?" Zara smiled, very small. "Yes, Mr. Choi, I would." The tea arrived. She drank it. The counsel waited. The slap was about to be paid in full. But not yet. The door at the far end of the room had not yet opened. When it did, it would open onto Seo Jun-ho, unarmed in his wedding suit, with the patriarch's signet ring in the inside pocket of his jacket, and a face Zara had not seen in 10 days. And the question that had hung between them, since the moment she had walked out of the basement, was about to be answered, in front of the council, in front of Han So-yeon, in front of the seal of the Cheongdo, in a single gesture, whose ring it was, and whose finger it would belong to from now on. The door at the far end of the lacquered room opened. Seo Jun-ho walked in. He was alone. He was unarmed. He was wearing the charcoal 3-piece suit that had been hanging in the back of his closet for 6 months, the suit Zara had not seen. The suit he had bought for the wedding she had not yet agreed to, but had not yet refused. The shirt under the suit was the soft cream he wore only when he was meant to be standing next to her. There was no tie. The collar was open. The serpent on the side of his neck was fully visible. He did not look at Han So-yeon. He did not look at the council. He looked at Zara. She was seated at the side of the long lacquered table, with a cup of tea cooling in front of her and her hands folded on her lap. Her wine-dark velvet dress caught the chandelier light. The gold keychain, repaired, the broken link replaced in the New Orleans boutique. That afternoon, the brass key pendant cleaned, was back at her throat. Her chin was lifted. He held her eyes across the room. He breathed once. He walked to the head of the lacquered table where Elder Choi Sang-hoon was seated. He did not bow. He stopped 1 pace from the table. He took the small black velvet pouch from the inside pocket of his suit. He shook the patriarch's signet ring into his palm. He held the ring out flat above the lacquered table. He said in Korean, "Take it. The Cheongdo is yours. The serpent dies with me tonight." She walks out. Han So-yeon, standing behind her father, smiled the smile she had been waiting 9 days to smile. The council did not smile. The council was looking at Elder Choi Sang-hoon because Elder Choi Sang-hoon had not moved. Han So-yeon's father, Han Min-sik, the heavy-shouldered 70-year-old at the foot of the table, frowned. He said, in Korean, "Choi-si, take it." Elder Choi did not move. He looked, instead, at Zara. Zara looked back. For a long count of 3, the lacquered room was silent except for the small electric hum of the chandelier. Then Elder Choi spoke. He said, in Korean, in a voice so quiet that 2 of the men at the table leaned slightly forward to hear him, "There has been a misunderstanding." Han Min-sik turned his head. "What?" Elder Choi did not look away from Zara. He said, still in Korean, still very quietly, "The council has been misinformed about the situation in Manhattan. The Daijang's personal life has not, in fact, been a liability to the syndicate. We have reviewed the matter. The marriage to Han So-yeon will not move forward. The council apologizes to the Daijang for any inconvenience." The lacquered room exploded. Han So-yeon's smile fell off her face. Han Min-sik stood up so fast that his chair scraped backward across the floor. "Choi, what is this?" Elder Choi turned his head slowly toward his old colleague. He said, "Min-suk-si, sit down. What did you just?" "Sit down." Han Min-suk did not sit down. Han Min-suk turned to the council and began to speak, loudly, the way men speak when they feel a long-arranged tide reversing under their feet. He spoke about tradition. He spoke about the agreement. He spoke about his daughter's honor. He spoke for almost a full minute. At the end of the minute, Elder Choi raised 1 finger. The council went silent. Elder Choi said, "Min-sik-si, the agreement is rescinded. Your daughter has, in the past 3 weeks, taken actions that the council was not aware of and would not have sanctioned. She has hired a Western drunk to assault the Daijang's fiancé in front of cameras. She has paid this drunk through Singapore shells. She has done this without my approval, without your approval, and without the council's approval. The matter ends tonight." He turned his head. He looked at Han So-yeon. So-yeona. Han So-yeon was very white. "Yes, Halaboji, you are no longer part of the Han faction." Han Min-sik said. "What?" Elder Choi did not look at him. "You will leave Seoul within 48 hours, Elder Choi said to Han So-yeon. "You will not return. You will not approach the Daejang. You will not approach the Daejang's wife. If you are seen within 1 kilometer of either, you will be removed. Do you understand?" Han So-yeon did not speak. Elder Choi said, "Do you understand?" she said in a voice barely above a whisper. "Yes, Halabiuji." Han Min-sik said, Choi, what is happening?" Elder Choi turned and looked across the room at his old colleague. He said simply, "Min-sik-si, the Daejang's fiancé knows about your daughter's payments to my account. She has chosen, this evening, to share that information privately with me before sharing it with the council. Out of respect, I am returning the respect." The lacquered room went silent again. Han Min-sik understood. He sat down. He looked at his daughter. He did not look at her again for the rest of the night. Elder Choi turned back to Junho. He said in Korean, "Daejang, take the ring back." Junho had not moved his palm. The ring was still flat in it. He did not move it now. He looked at Zara. Zara stood up. She walked the length of the lacquered table. She stopped in front of him. She held his eyes. She said in English, "Put it on me." The council heard the English word. 2 of the men at the table did not speak English well enough to follow her clause. One of them did. He inhaled. Junho looked at her. He looked at the ring. He looked back at her. He said in English, very quietly, "Zara, put it on me, Zara. The ring is the seal of the Cheongdo. It is the Daejang's mark. It is not. Put it on me." She held her left hand out, palm down. He looked at her hand. He looked at her face. He understood in one breath what she was doing. She was not asking him to give her the ring. She was asking him to make her the Daejang, in front of the council, in front of the seal, in front of the men who had decided for 6 months that her existence was a liability to a syndicate she had not asked to be part of, in front of Han So-yeon, who had been told an hour ago that she was the future of the Cheongdo and was now being told by a black American woman in a wine-dark dress that she was not even the present. He took her left hand. He slid the patriarch's signet ring onto her ring finger. The council went silent again. He did not let go of her hand. He turned, still holding her hand, and looked at the council. He said in Korean, "From tonight forward, this ring is hers. She speaks, I sit. She decides, I obey. The seal is on her hand. If you have a problem with that, you may rise now and address her directly. I will translate." No one rose. Elder Choi said in Korean very quietly, "The council accepts." The other elders said, in unison, "The council accepts." Han Min-sik said at last. Han So-yeon did not speak. Junho turned to Zara. He raised her ringed hand to his mouth. He kissed the back of it. He said, in English, "My queen, what would you like to do?" Zara said, in English, in a voice that carried to every man at the table, "I would like to go home." He nodded. He turned. He held her hand in his. They walked the length of the lacquered table together. Park Tae-jin was standing at the door. Tae-jin bowed, not the small functional bow he had given Zara on the porch in Baton Rouge, but the long formal bow of a syndicate lieutenant acknowledging the patriarch. He did not bow to Junho. He bowed to Zara. Junho saw it. Junho did not comment. They left the townhouse. The night was cool and clear on the Upper East Side. The black sedan was at the curb. Tae-jin opened the door for Zara. Zara got in. Junho walked around the back of the car. He paused at the door on his side. He looked at Tae-jin across the roof. He said in Korean, "You came to her without my permission." Tae-jin said, "Yes, Hyung." Junho said, "You went against me." Tae-jin said, "Yes, Hyung." Junho looked at him for a long count of 3. Then he said in Korean, "Thank you." Tae-jin bowed again. Junho got in the car. The sedan pulled away from the curb. The lacquered townhouse went dark behind them. In the back seat, Zara closed her hand around his. The patriarch's signet ring caught the streetlight as they passed 59th and went south. She did not speak for a long block, then she said, Junho, my love, the maid, Christina Reyes, the one from the basement. He held her eyes in the dark. What about her? You paid her to talk. Yes, make sure she's safe for the rest of her life. She is already. Make sure her daughter goes to whichever college she wants. He nodded. Marcus Chen, the boy from Westport. Yes, the same. Yes. She turned her face to the window. The city slid past. After a long time she said, Nathaniel. He's done. He is done. How? Federal indictment files Monday. Securities fraud, witness tampering, 3 other counts. He goes away for a long time. We do not need to touch him personally again. The state will do the rest. She nodded. His mother, Eleanor, she knew. How long? Years. She closed her eyes. He said, Do you want me to do anything to Eleanor? She thought about it for a long time. She said, No. He waited. She said, She'll have to watch what happens to her son. That's enough. He nodded. The sedan turned onto Park. They reached the brownstone at the corner of 81st. Tage pulled to the curb. He got out. He opened Zara's door. He bowed. She stepped out. Junho came around. He took her hand. He walked her up the stoop. At the top of the stoop, she stopped. She turned to him. She put one hand against his chest. She felt his heart. It was again the steady heartbeat she had fallen asleep against for 2 years. It was the heartbeat she had not been sure she would ever feel again. She said, Junho, my love. You wrote the counsel 5 words. He looked at her. Yes, read them to me. He held her eyes, he said in English, Then I die first. She closed her eyes, she opened them. She said, Don't die first, live first with me. He kissed her on the forehead. He said yes. They went inside. In the kitchen, the velvet box was still on the counter, where she had left it the morning after the slap. She had not opened it again. He picked it up. He opened it. The emerald ring was still inside. He took it out. He set it next to her left hand on the counter. The patriarch's signet ring was already on her ring finger. He put the emerald on the finger next to it. He said, 2 rings. She said, 2 answers. He kissed her mouth. The night went quiet. In the morning, she would wake up at 5:30 the way she always did. She would shower. She would put on dark jeans and a cream cashmere turtleneck. She would put both rings on her left hand. She would put the gold keychain back at her throat. She would put her hair up. She would walk to Maison Vert. She would unlock the staff door. She would turn on the lights room by room. The back first, then the kitchen, then the front. The way her grandmother had taught her to turn on the lights at the diner, so the light followed her to the door instead of catching her from behind. Marisol would be at the bar. Theo would be at the pass. Zara would set her bag down on the marble bar. She would say, We open tomorrow. Marisol would say, Yes, chef. Theo would say, Yes, chef. Zara would walk to her office. She would close the door. She would sit down at the desk. She would open the envelope from her mother that Pearl May had handed her at the kitchen table the day before. The envelope contained a single sheet of lined paper in her mother's handwriting, dated 4 months before her mother had died. The paper read, Zara, my baby, if you are reading this, you are old enough to need it. I want you to know one thing. Some men will love you the way you have always deserved to be loved. Not many. But the ones who do will not be the ones who look like the men who hurt me. They will look like nothing I knew. You will not know them by their words. You will know them by what they refuse to let happen to you. Choose the one who chooses you back. Burn this. Mama. Zara would read it twice. She would not burn it. She would put it in the small lockbox in the lower drawer of her desk, next to the original 68 invoices from CO Import Group that Marisol had not burned, because Marisol had been her sommelier for 3 years, and her best friend for 4, and Marisol had decided on her own that the originals stayed. Zara would close the lockbox. She would lock it. She would go back out to the floor. That evening at 6, she would meet Junho at a small jazz club on the Upper West Side, the same club where they had met 3 years earlier on a Tuesday night when he had asked the bartender to send a glass of soju to her table, and she had sent it back with a note that read, "I prefer wine. Send the bottle if you want to talk." He had sent the bottle. He had walked over. They had not stopped talking until 2 in the morning. He had not told her that night what he was. He had told her that night that he was a wine importer who admired her gallery from a distance. She had believed him that night for the next 3 years and 4 months. She would never again believe him about anything he had not also shown her with action. She would not need to. He would never lie to her again. A week from tonight, in the council's lacquered townhouse on the Upper East Side, Elder Choi Sang-hoon would write a private letter, in Korean, to the only other man on the council who had not voted for his removal from the chair. And the letter would say, "The Daejong's wife is the most dangerous person in the Cheongdo. We will be at peace as long as she chooses to be. Pray that she chooses to be." 2 weeks from tonight, in the federal courthouse in Lower Manhattan, Nathaniel Beaumont would enter a plea of not guilty to the charges of securities fraud and witness tampering. He would be released on a $10 million bond paid by his mother. He would not contact Zara again. He would not be allowed to. He would eventually plead out for 9 years. He would serve 6. 3 weeks from tonight, in a small apartment in Brooklyn, Christina Reyes, the maid Nathaniel had paid off at 16, would receive an anonymous trust fund for her 7-year-old daughter. The trust fund would be irrevocable. The trust fund would be administered by a Korean lawyer Christina would never meet. The first payment would clear the day her daughter turned 18. 3 months from tonight, on a private terrace at the top of a Manhattan high-rise, Zara Devereaux would marry Seo Jun-ho in front of 48 people, half of them American, half of them Korean. Pearl May would be there. Marisol would be there. Park Tae-jin would walk Zara down the aisle because Pearl May would ask him to. Elder Choi Sang-hoon would not be invited. He would, however, send a wedding gift, a single black lacquer box containing a simple gold pin in the shape of a serpent biting its own tail, and a note in English that read, "To the Lady of the Cheongdo, with respect." See, Zara would wear the pin. She would wear it for the rest of her life. But that was 3 months away. Tonight, Zara Devereaux fell asleep in the brownstone at the corner of Park and 81st, on a bed she had paid for with her own savings, in an apartment that was now, legally, hers, with 2 rings on her left hand and a gold key chain repaired at her throat. The man asleep next to her was the man she had always thought he was. Not the import businessman he had said he was, not the Daejang she had discovered him to be. But the third man underneath those 2, the one she had felt against her ribs every night for 2 years, the one she had chosen back tonight in front of the council, in English, in front of the seal. She did not know yet what their marriage would look like. She knew, however, what it would not look like. It would not look like her mother's life. It would not look like the diner on Highway 61. It would not look like a ruby red gown soaked with someone else's wine. It would look like a small jazz club on a Tuesday night. A bottle of red wine on the table between 2 people who had nothing in common except a willingness to keep talking, and a ring on the table, sliding slowly across the lacquer, between the only 2 hands that had ever earned the right to wear it. The slap had echoed once. The answer had echoed forever. In the dark of the bedroom, the serpent on Junho's neck rested against the curve of his collarbone, and the patriarch's signet ring on Zara's left hand caught the streetlight from the window. And outside, on Madison Avenue, the harpist who had played the night Nathaniel Beaumont swung the bottle had been booked again for the reopening of Maison Vert on Friday. Same set list, same gallery, same list, same manager, different ending. The lights of Manhattan held steady through the window. The city did not know what had happened in the lacquered townhouse on the Upper East Side at midnight. The city would never know, but somewhere in the basement records of a Korean syndicate, older than the city itself, The name Zara Devereaux had been entered into the ledger as the second Daijang in the Cheongdo's history. The first not born of the bloodline, the first not Korean, the first not a man. The pen that had entered the name was Taejin's. The hand that had ordered the entry was Junho's. The signature at the bottom of the page was Zara's own. She had signed it in the back of the sedan on the way home, with Junho holding the ledger flat on his thigh and Taejin in the rearview mirror. And she had signed it in English, in her quick, careful hand, the same way she signed the closing report at Maison Vert every Saturday night. Z. Devereaux. The ledger closed, the story closed. The slap was paid in full. And in the small back bedroom in Baton Rouge, Pearl May Devereaux, 81 years old, the daughter of a man who had carried hot coffee for 40 cents an hour on the Illinois Central Railroad, the mother of a daughter who had loved the wrong Beaumont, the grandmother of a woman who had now married the right man, turned off the gospel radio at midnight and went to bed with the lacquered box stills on the kitchen table. She did not need the revolver. She had known she wouldn't. She has raised her right. If this story moved you, stop for a moment and reflect. Have you ever been publicly humiliated by someone who assumed your silence meant you would carry it? Have you ever discovered after the fact that the person who loved you most had been quietly protecting you in ways you never asked for and would never have asked for? And if you had to choose between the truth about someone and the peace they built around you, which one would you keep? Tell us your experiences and feelings in the comments. We read them all. If you want to go deeper into this world, our Patreon community is the extension of this channel. Extra sagas, bonus chapters, no ads, link below. And if you believe in stories about dignity, hidden devotion, and karmic justice, leave a like. Be sure to subscribe to the channel and click join to become a part of our community and help the channel.